Give me the phone, Mariah. You're completely paranoid. Dennis's voice cut through the quiet kitchen, his face contorted in an anger I'd never seen before. He made a grab for the device, but I yanked it back, my heart pounding against my ribs. I'm just asking for the truth, I said, my voice shaking. The phone in my hand felt heavy, its screen filled with text to someone named R. Just tell me what's going on. Who is this? Stop acting like a victim, he snarled, stepping closer. The man I'd loved for 8 years was gone, replaced by this stranger with cold eyes. You're imagining things. Give it to me now. The kitchen suddenly felt suffocating. I needed space, needed to get away from his lies. I turned toward the hallway, but his hand shot out and shoved me hard in the back. I lost my balance instantly. My shoulders slammed against the doorframe. Then I was tumbling down the stairs. Wood steps dug into my ribs, my hip, my side. The world was a blur of pain and shock until I landed in a heap at the bottom, gasping for air. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Dennis's sharp intake of breath from the top of the stairs. Then his footsteps walking away. No one expects to find out their life is built on lies, but I refuse to let his gaslighting destroy what I've built. My name is Mariah, and I'm 32 years old. Each morning, I make breakfast for my kids in the same kitchen where my husband once told me I was crazy for questioning his hidden phone. The bruises from my fall have faded, but the clarity remains. My aunt, Beatrice, saw the truth immediately when I showed up at her door that night with my children. Dennis, my husband of 8 years, had been living a double life with Rebecca, the woman I considered my closest friend. I chose evidence over emotion, documentation over drama. But let me start from the beginning. I remember the first sign something was wrong. It was a Thursday morning, rain tapping against the windows. I was making school lunches, turkey sandwiches for Liam, peanut butter for Sophia. That's when I heard it, a faint buzzing coming from somewhere in the house. I checked my pocket, then the counter. Nothing. The sound faded before I could find its source, but it left a nagging feeling in my gut. A week later, I noticed Dennis's new habit with his smartwatch. He used to leave it on the nightstand, screen facing up. Now it was always face down, silent. A small thing, maybe, but it joined that phantom buzz in my mind. Then came the private smiles. I'd walk into a room and catch him grinning at his phone, but when he saw me, the smile would vanish. Just work stuff, he'd say, too quickly. The final clue came from my 6-year-old daughter. At bedtime, as I tucked her in, she asked, "Mommy, does Auntie Becky have a pool?" My blood ran cold. Auntie Becky? "Yeah," she said sleepily. "Daddy's friend. We saw her yesterday." The next day, while Dennis was at work and the kids were at school, I searched. Not because I wanted to find anything, but because I needed the doubt to end. I checked his office, our bedroom, finally the garage. Behind a stack of old paint cans, I found it. A phone I'd never seen before. It was still warm. My hand shook as I picked it up. Just then, the garage door opened. He was home early. I slipped the phone in my pocket as he walked in. "Hey, you're back early," I said, trying to sound normal. "Meeting got canceled," he said without looking at me. He started unpacking groceries. And then the phone in my pocket vibrated. I pulled it out. The screen showed a new message. "Can't wait for tonight. Hotel confirmed." And I placed the phone on the counter. The sound made him turn. His eyes locked on the device, and for a second, I saw pure panic. "Whose phone is this?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "That's my old work phone. Why are you going through my things?" "It was in the garage. It's warm. It's getting messages." I picked it up, my thumb hovering over the screen. "Whose are?" "Give me that," he snapped, his composure breaking. "You're being paranoid." "Are you seeing someone?" The words hurt to say. His face darkened. "I said, give me the phone." And that's when it happened. The demand, the shove, the fall. Lying at the bottom of the stairs, pain radiating through my body, I knew one thing for certain. My marriage was over.
The house was silent, except for the ragged sound of my own breathing. Pain radiated from my side with every inhale. Lying at the foot of the stairs, I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely open the camera. Click. The flash illuminated the sharp angle of the stairs. Click. A close-up of the fresh red marks already blooming on my arm. Click. The scuff mark on the wall where my shoulder had hit. I documented everything with methodical precision, the cold focus cutting through the shock and betrayal. Before I could second-guess myself, I opened my contacts and pressed the name I knew I could trust. "Aunt B?" I whispered when she answered, my voice thick with unshed tears. "I need you. Dennis, he pushed me down the stairs. I have the kids. I'm leaving." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then her voice, firm and clear. "I'm on my way. Don't move. I'll be there in 15 minutes. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway sent a fresh jolt of fear through me. Had Dennis come back? But then I heard the familiar quick footsteps and the jingle of keys. Aunt B appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of grim determination. Her eyes swept over me, huddled on the floor, and then up the empty staircase. "Where are the children?" she asked, her voice low and steady. "They're asleep, upstairs," I managed. "Okay, you sit. I'll get them." She moved through our home with a quiet efficiency, a soldier on a rescue mission. I heard her soft murmurs upstairs, the gentle rustling as she bundled my sleeping children, Liam and Sophia, into their winter coats over their pajamas. She came back down carrying Sophia, with Liam trailing behind her, his eyes wide and confused. "Mommy?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're going on a little adventure with Aunt B." B helped me to my feet, her arm a solid support around my waist. She led us all out to her car, buckling the children into their car seats in the back. As we pulled away from the house I had loved, I didn't look back. B's apartment was a small, warm sanctuary. She settled the kids into her bed, where they immediately fell back asleep, nestled together. In her bathroom, under the harsh fluorescent light, I finally saw the full damage. Vicious purple bruises were already spreading across my ribs and back. My hands were steady now as I took more photos, the camera on my phone documenting each injury with time-stamped clarity. I had just finished when the hidden phone, which I'd shoved into my pocket, lit up on the bathroom counter. The notification made my blood run cold. "Delete everything. Filing for emergency custody first thing tomorrow. You'll never see them again. R." I walked out and handed the phone to B. She read the message, her lips pressed into a thin, hard line. "This isn't a threat, B," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "It's a confession." She looked at me, her eyes full of a fierce, protective love. "What do you need?" "Your laptop and a flash drive." Sitting at her kitchen table as dawn lightened the sky, I created a fortress of truth. I made a new folder, Evidence. Into it, I dragged the photos of my bruises, the pictures of the staircase, screenshots of the threatening text. I created a document and typed out a timeline from the first phantom buzz to the shove that sent me flying. Each file was meticulously named with the date and time. It was no longer just my word against his. It was a documented, chronological record of his betrayal and violence. "Can you take me to a lawyer first thing this morning?" I asked B, not looking up from the screen. "Already looking up the best family law attorneys in the city," she replied, her phone in her hand. The law office was all modern glass and steel, a stark contrast to the cozy chaos I'd just left. A woman named Attorney Naomi Reed met us in a conference room. She had a calm, assessing gaze that missed nothing. "Mariah," she said, after I'd laid out the entire story piece by documented piece. I showed her the hidden phone, the photos, the timeline. "We'll file for a temporary protective order immediately, and I suggest we petition for temporary sole custody. Given this evidence, the court will look favorably on it. The children's safety is the paramount concern."
The filing at the courthouse was a blur of officious stamps and echoing hallways. By noon, I had a stack of papers that made it official. Denise was legally ordered to stay away from us, and I had temporary custody of Liam and Sophia. Back at the house would be a standing guard. I knelt by the front door and worked a screwdriver into the old deadbolt. The mechanical process of removing the old hardware and installing the new, stronger lock was grounding. It was something I could control, something I could fix. "The exchange is at 4, I told Bea, testing the smooth slide of the new key. "At the park near the library." "I'll be watching from the car," she nodded. "You won't be alone." At the park, the winter air was biting. I stood by the swings, my hands deep in my pockets. Denise's car pulled in, and he got out alone. His face was a careful blank. "We need to talk about this," he began, gesturing vaguely at the custody papers I'd handed him. "The time for talking is over, Denise," I said, my voice flat. "This is about the children's safety now." His mask slipped for a second, revealing the anger beneath. "You're being unreasonable. You're trying to turn my children against me?" "The evidence will speak for itself," I replied, watching him. "Everything is documented." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You think you're so clever? We'll see what the judge says about your mental state. An unstable mother is a danger to her children." He turned and strode back to his car without looking back. The threat hung in the cold air. He wasn't going to fight fair. He was going to try and destroy me. The rest of the afternoon was an exercise in forced normalcy. I made the kids macaroni and cheese for dinner, helped with homework, and read bedtime stories, all while my mind raced. At 7:55 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification from the doorbell camera I'd reinstalled. A car I didn't recognize pulled up. Right at 8 p.m., there was a knock. Two serious-faced people stood on my porch, holding official-looking tablets. "Mariah Vance, we're from Child Protective Services. We're here to follow up on a report concerning the children's safety." My heart hammered, but I kept my face calm. Denise and Rebecca had made good on their threat. "Please come in," I said, stepping aside. "I've been expecting you." I led them to the living room, where I had already set out a folder on the coffee table next to a tray with water glasses. The female investigator, Miss Gable, took the lead. "We've received a report alleging an unstable and unsafe home environment. Can you walk us through recent events?" "Of course," I said, my voice steady. "I've documented everything chronologically. It begins with the discovery of my husband's second phone, which he was using to conduct an affair." I walked them through the evidence, photo by photo, document by document. I showed them the temporary protective order, the custody filing, the photos of my injuries. I explained the context of the CPS threat text from the hidden phone. The children were asleep upstairs during the incident, I emphasized. My first action after ensuring my own safety was to remove them from the environment to my aunt's home, which you can verify. Miss Gable studied the doorbell footage of Denise leaving after our park exchange. "And the children are here now?" "Yes, they're in their rooms. Would you like to see them?" I led them upstairs. Liam was building with Legos, and Sophia was already asleep, her breathing soft and even. The investigators observed them quietly before we returned downstairs. After a brief inspection of the tidy, well-stocked kitchen and the children's clean rooms, they returned to the living room. "We'll need to conduct follow-up interviews," Miss Gable said, "but based on our observation and the documentation you've provided, the home appears stable and the children's needs are being met. The children's safety is my only priority,"
I said quietly. I'm taking every legal step to ensure it. After they left, I immediately called Bia. Can you come over? I want to take the kids to your place again tonight, just to be safe. While she drove over, I packed overnight bags. We moved the sleeping children to her car, a well-practiced routine now. Back in the quiet of her home office, I opened my laptop. The first email, with the entire evidence packet attached, went to the CPS investigators. The second task was to begin drafting a formal response to Denise's allegations, building on the custody filing. The clock read 11:30 p.m. when I finally saved the files to a dedicated flash drive. Every fact, every photo, every timestamp was in place, a silent army ready to defend the truth. The war for my children and my life was just beginning, but in the quiet hum of the laptop, I felt a new, unshakable strength. I was no longer a victim, I was a strategist, and I was armed with the truth. The morning of the mediation felt like walking into a battlefield. The room was cold, all polished wood and sterile air. Dennis and lawyer sat on one side of the long table. My Aunt Bee sat behind me, a silent pillar of strength. My lawyer, Naomi Reed, gave me a steadying nod. The mediator, a woman with a calm, no-nonsense demeanor, began. Ms. Vance, please state your primary concerns for the court. The safety and stability of my children, Liam and Sophia, I said, my voice clear in the quiet room, and an accurate accounting of the events that led us here. Denise scoffed quietly. He looked the part of the wronged husband, tired, concerned, his wedding ring still on. It was a performance, and I knew every line. Naomi placed a small audio player on the table. With the court's permission, we'd like to enter a recording into evidence. Denise's eyes widened slightly. His lawyer leaned over and whispered something to him, but he just shook his head, a confident, almost smug look on his face. He thought he was ready for anything. The mediator nodded. Proceed. Naomi pressed play. First, there was the rustle of fabric. Then Rebecca's voice, sharp and clear. We need to make her look unstable. Tell them she's been erratic, that she's a danger to the kids. My breath caught. I hadn't known this recording existed. Naomi had found it in the hidden phone's cloud backup. Then Denise's voice, cold and calculating. The CPS call is scheduled. They'll do a home visit. Her story will sound crazy next to ours. And the fall? Rebecca asked. She fell. She's clumsy. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. The recording ended. The smugness drained from Denise's face, leaving behind a pale, sweaty mask. He stared at the audio player as if it had betrayed him. No, it's out of context. He stammered. The context is perfectly clear, Mr. Vance, the mediator said, her voice icy. She turned to me. Ms. Vance, do you have anything to add? I looked directly at Denise. My only focus is protecting my children. They deserve a home built on truth, not a life built on your lies. The mediator made a note. We'll take a 15-minute recess. During the break, I saw Dennis and his lawyer arguing in hushed, frantic tones in the hallway. When we reconvened, the fight had gone out of him. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes downcast. His lawyer spoke first. My client is prepared to accept the terms of the temporary custody order. He will also withdraw his counterpetition regarding Ms. Vance's mental fitness. Naomi didn't even blink. And the financial matter, the unauthorized withdrawals from the joint home equity line of credit? Denise flinched. He hadn't known we'd found the bank statements, the transfers to an account in Rebecca's name. We are prepared to discuss a repayment plan, his lawyer said stiffly. Full restitution, Naomi stated, and we will be filing a civil suit against Miss Rebecca Walsh for her role in this conspiracy. They agreed. It was over. The legal scaffolding of my old life was dismantled in that sterile room, piece by piece. The final paperwork landed over the next week. The custody order gave me primary physical and legal custody, with Dennis's visitation to be supervised, at least initially. The judge's words in the ruling were scathing, citing a calculated campaign of spousal alienation and fraud. The temporary protective order was made permanent. Dennis accepted a plea deal for the assault charge, anger management classes, and probation. The mark would be on his record forever. Rebecca was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. The bank voided the fraudulent line of credit, and the title to my house was clear again. I was in B's kitchen when Naomi called with the final update. I listened, my hand tight around the phone, but I felt no triumph, only a quiet, profound relief. "It's finished, Mariah," Naomi said. "You're free." I stood on my front porch, a new key in my hand. The house looked the same, but it felt different, lighter. The shadows that Denise and Rebecca had cast were gone, swept away by the truth. B stood beside me, a can of paint in one hand and a brush in the other. "Ready to make it yours again?" We started with the living room, covering the dull beige Denise had insisted on with a soft, warm blue. The kids joined in, laughing as they painted clumsy, bright flowers at the bottom of the walls. Their laughter, once so rare and hesitant, now filled the rooms, bouncing off the bare walls and filling the empty spaces with pure, uncomplicated joy. Next, I tackled the gouge in the stair banister where I had fallen. I sanded it carefully, feeling the solid wood beneath the damage. With each pass of the sandpaper, I smoothed away not just the physical scar, but the memory of the pain and the fear. I stained and varnished it until the repair was seamless, a part of the wood's history, but no longer a raw, open wound. One afternoon, I was hanging new curtains in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. It was a delivery, a large, flat package. I opened it to find a beautiful, custom-made piece of art. It was a tree, its roots deep and strong, its branches reaching wide, sheltering a small house. In the corner, a small engraved plaque read, "A family's strength is built on truth." There was no name, but I knew it was from Naomi, my lawyer. It was the perfect gift. I hung it in the living room, right where anyone entering would see it. It was no longer just a house. It was our home, a home I had fought for, a home I had reclaimed. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat on the repaired stairs, a cup of tea in my hands. The moon shone through the window, casting a silvery light on the smooth, restored banister. I thought about the long, painful journey from the bottom of these stairs to this moment of quiet peace. No, fam, who was the real villain in this story? Was it Denise for his betrayal and violence, or Rebecca for masterminding the gaslighting and fraud? Is the friend who helps destroy your life sometimes worse than the partner who does? Share your verdict below. If the story had you picking a side, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.